Welcome back to the Basement Boys podcast and this week's free episode. If you're interested in bonus episodes, behind the scenes, bloopers, and more, check out patreon.com/basementboyspodcast, where most of that content is available for just $2 a month. Regardless, we appreciate all your support and we hope you enjoy this episode. Today is our first ever dual commentary video game podcast. I've done a video game podcast by myself when you didn't have a car and weren't able to be around.
What you're talking about.
Back when you crashed your car and couldn't record these podcasts because you were off.
I have no memory.
Living at home. I did a solo video game podcast.
Simply not happened as a thing that happened.
Zach, denying that your car didn't get in an accident won't bring it back.
Denying that my fucking sweet baby convertible got totaled. It might bring it back.
I don't think so.
If I say it hard enough, insurance will give it back to me and then I can get it fixed.
Oh, Lord. Yeah, so this is our first time ever doing a video game podcast together. And our only, second time doing a video game podcast in total, which I'm proud about because these are technically easier to do than just,
by a lot.
Than setting up the studio, setting up lighting. So, realistically, if we were at our full lazy potential, we would have done a million video game podcasts by now because they're easier to do than a regular podcast. But we haven't because we're trying to keep this podcast professional. The only reason we're doing it today is because we are heavily theming pretty much every topic today around video games, so it felt fitting.
You gotta stop using the word professional.
Listen, I feel like we're as professional as we can be with 20 subscribers, alright? I think we're the most professional podcast out there with 20 subscribers.
We might be.
That's just
I just fucking hate the word
facts.
professional lately, and I don't know how to explain it.
That's fair. That's fair. I can't find a village or a temple right now, but I found a jungle. Jungles, honestly, might be one of my favorite biomes in Minecraft, just because I feel like they look like the most fun. I don't know. I like jungles a lot. Anyways.
I kind of think the wood looks like shit, though.
Oh, 100%. I hate jungle wood. I don't think I've ever used jungle wood for a big build, ever. I don't know. I've always called it like a worse acacia. I don't know if you can agree or relate. It's I don't know. It's like a less contrasted acacia. Like acacia's bright.
At least acacia is like true to the point it's trying to be.
Exactly. Anyways, we should probably get into the main topic of this episode.
It's acacia, but it was too scared to be acacia.
Acacia, but too scared
the Game
to be
Awards,
acacia.
which I haven't looked at all.
You haven't looked at the Game Awards
yet.
The reason I want to talk about the Game Awards,
I think it's arbitrary and kind of a lot of the games that end up being voted in the Game Awards aren't that great. And before you tear me to ribbons over
no, I agree with that. I agree with that statement.
I'm talking about our viewers. My reasoning is fucking every goddamn year it's the best shooter game is Call of Duty or something, and the best this game is that, and there's games that always win the same category every year, and it's just nix those categories if only one game is capable of winning it every year.
That's fair. I mean, I have disagreed with Game Awards winners more than I have agreed with them. The year Overwatch won Game of the Year, I was heavily against that.
I was livid about that.
But I still enjoy the Game Awards and enjoy seeing some of the nominees. You found a village? Dope. I have been so unsuccessful in my desert.
My desert has yielded a bountiful village for me. So.
Beautiful. I'll head
it's
over to
also
you.
got a little lava pool right next to it. We can pretty much go straight to the Nether.
Nice. I don't think we're good enough to go without armor.
We shouldn't, but we could.
But we could. But the reason I want to talk about the Game Awards this year is I don't know if our audience feels the same way, or maybe it's just me, but I don't recognize half of the games on the nominees this year. I don't recognize half the nominees because it is just maybe it's because of COVID, maybe I've just been out of the gaming community this year compared to previous years, but in previous years I recognize pretty much every single title. I know every single game that's been nominated. I can agree with some or disagree with some. This year I don't even know if my opinions are valid because I don't recognize half the games. Maybe a game deserves to win that I don't know about, and it's just my fault for not knowing about it. So we're going to talk a little bit about that today. starting with the top and then going down to the smaller categories. So game of the year this year, the nominees for game of the year are Doom Eternal, Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, Animal Crossing New Horizon, and The Last of Us Part 2. Initial reaction, Zach.
Um, all those games have been extremely like either well received or controversial in their reception.
Yeah.
There's no game that was that everyone can agree is like, ah, yeah, this was fire. Like I don't like Ghost of Tsushima might be the most well received game on that list.
Maybe. And that's what concerns me. Like, here's how I feel. I feel
Then,
like all of these games are good with no complaints or great with, like, complaints, which kind of evens the playing field. Like, the obvious choice, if you don't consider reception, would be The Last of Us Part 2. But
yeah,
so many people hated The Last of Us Part 2. So, like, does it deserve to win? Is it the obvious choice? I don't think so anymore. And, like, I'm torn. Because, like, Hades is such a beautiful game, but it's not as, like, masterfully built or as, you know,
which one's Hades?
Hades is the roguelike set in hell. And you're just, trying to escape hell over and over and over again. And it has,
Roguelike?
yeah,
I've never heard that category before.
it is a genre of games. How do I describe it? I mean, the best way to describe it is kind of how I just did. Like, you are constantly dying and having to start over and over and over again from the beginning. But you,
Oh, Souls-like.
no.
No?
Souls-like is similar but different. But, like, in Dark Souls, you have save points. In roguelikes, you start from the beginning of the game again. Every
Oh.
time you die. In most roguelikes. And you just, while that would be obnoxious for some people, it's fun because you build up your character and like your levels and your knowledge of the game, so
Okay.
you can maybe get farther the next time, or maybe even beat the game the next life. Can I get your chords real quick?
Yeah. I'm at -403, 265.
Okay, I'm heading over to you now. I was heading roughly the right direction. I got to go a little bit more south though. So like Hades is a beautiful roguelike, arguably one of the best ever made, but obviously it's not as well animated, or it doesn't have as much flair to it as a game like The Last of Us, which is why I can't give Hades the title off jump. Of the 6 nominees, there's like 4 that I think deserve it, which makes it even more difficult for me to pick one. But I will say the 2 that I don't think deserve it. Of the 6 nominees, the 2 that I don't think deserve it is Final Fantasy VII Remake. Because, like most people, I think it had a lacking amount of content for a remake. Like, I don't know. It didn't feel better than the original Final Fantasy VII, in my opinion. And maybe
What
that's
do you mean I'm getting hit by this skeleton?
the other one that doesn't deserve it is Animal Crossing New Horizons. And the Nintendo
Yeah.
fan in me,
I don't.
the Nintendo fan in me thought maybe it deserved it for like half a second. And then I remembered crafting 38 manila clams individually into fish bait. And yeah, I can't put Animal Crossing New Horizons at the top. Like, it's a fun game. It's a nice, cute game, but it's not Game of the Year. It doesn't compare to something like Last of Us or Ghost of Tsushima or Doom Eternal.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's where I guess I get torn. Like, Doom Eternal for Game of the Year, it's a great game. I don't have really any complaints with it, but also nothing about Doom Eternal stands out to me as exceptional at the same time. So I don't know. I'm torn. You said Ghost of Tsushima sticks out to you a little bit, which I agree with, but
I didn't say it sticks out to me. I just said it was like the best received one. I honestly haven't looked at or played any of these games.
fair.
Honestly, the only one on this list I've actually like played for a minute is Animal Crossing New Horizons,
Mm-hmm.
and it's like it's whack because I didn't enjoy it enough, like really at all. When I played it, I was basically playing it to play a game with friends,
Yeah.
which I do for a lot of things, but that was like I don't know how to explain like the way in which I was not content with how progress felt.
Yeah. Well, and On a similar note, you said you wanted to play with friends, but the multiplayer in that game is so lackluster.
Oh yeah, there's like not really anything to do.
There's no point to play multiplayer because whoever's the player two, or basically whoever's not player one, because I know you can have up to 8 people on an island, but whoever's not the owner of the island has really nothing to do. Every item they obtain goes directly to the owner of the island. Like, they aren't allowed to edit most things. See, I agree.
Do you have enough wood to make a chest?
I do. I agree. Animal Crossing was kind of it was lackluster. So
Oh,
I don't know.
never mind.
Of the four nominees that I think should win, that being Doom Eternal, good but not like nothing about it stands out as phenomenal. Ghost of Tsushima, in my opinion, I feel the kind of the same way about it. It's good but nothing stands out as phenomenal. Hades is beautiful, but it is like a roguelike that is a much shorter game than pretty much everything on this list. Like it can be it can be beaten really quickly, and it has, I guess, less content than most of the games on this Game of the Year category. And then finally, Last of Us Part 2, which, yeah, I don't know. Last of Us Part 2, everyone I've talked to hates it. Well, not hates it, but is disappointed by it. Everyone I've talked to dislikes the direction it went. So I feel like I can't vote for that. Anyways, we talked about Game of the Year for a while now, which is fair. It's the biggest category. But let's move on to some of the other lower categories, like Best Narrative, which has almost all of the games from Game of the Year as nominees, with one difference, and that being 13 Sentinels, which I've never heard of.
What?
However, to just go back to this Best Narrative category, because I don't know anything about 13 Sentinels, I'm not going to talk about it. But I actually voted for Hades as Best Narrative because I think it is hilarious. The characters are so funny, and Hades is a game that just builds off of itself so well. But as far as Best Narrative is concerned, I think there are, again, a lot of deserving games, except for The Last of Us Part 2. And again, I didn't play it, but everyone and anyone I know, just talked about how much they hated the characters and the story, which is what this category is. So
Yeah.
that's probably not going to get much love from me. I'm going to be honest. And if Last of Us 2 wins that category, I'll be shocked. Because I think it's the least deserving
honestly.
there.
I also think I think some of the hate for like Last of Us 2 is kind of ungarnered because I personally don't believe that you should raise your expectations just because a game took longer to make.
That's fair.
Voice cracks and all. Because I feel like a really good example of a game that I think has high potential to flop because of how long it's taking is Cyberpunk.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's like this game has been hyped up longer than I've been into gaming, and it's like oh, I found a cave.
Dope. Coming to you.
This game's been hyped up longer than I've been into gaming, and like at this point, I'm ready for it to not be what I expect at all.
One of the only categories I feel confident about my vote, like 100%, I think that game deserves it, hands down, is Best Score and Music, and that's, for me, going to Final Fantasy VII, just because Nobuo Uematsu, I think that's how you say his name, is one of the greatest video game music composers and creators of all time. It's why Final Fantasy games have some of the best soundtracks ever, and Final Fantasy VII was already one of the best Final Fantasy soundtracks, and then the remake only got better, and the music only improved.
Exactly enough for enchants.
Let's go. I got Lapis for us as well. But yeah, Final Fantasy VII Remake has the best soundtrack, but Best Score and Music is the only category I feel confident about. The rest of them, like I said, I'm torn. I don't exactly know where to vote. Yeah, it's a toughie. Moving on, though, to a category that I feel very torn about because I feel like I already know what's going to win. The category of Best Ongoing Game. Would you like to hear the nominees, Zach?
Yeah, let's hear the nominees.
Apex Legends, Destiny 2, Call of Duty Warzone,
Do you want? Okay.
Fortnite,
Hmm.
and No Man's
Oh,
Sky. Can you guess which one I voted for?
these are all such bad games.
I know, I don't like any of these.
These are.
I don't
I'm
think.
assuming. I think we all know Fortnite's gonna win this one for some godforsaken reason.
Oh, I know. That's why I said I hate this category because I feel like I already know who's gonna win, and I don't think Fortnite deserves it.
No, it
I
doesn't. It's
I voted for No Man's Sky personally because of how much it's improved over the years and how much it's continuing to improve
that's fair.
even today, which I think is impressive. Here's what irks me
Yeah.
is the exclusion of a game like Warframe on this list
Yeah. Yeah.
when Destiny 2 exists on this list. I don't like that.
I understand that.
I think Warframe deserves some recognition somewhere. And best ongoing might be the most fitting
Yeah.
category for Warframe, but it's nowhere to be found, which kind of sucks. Here's
Well, most
another
of those
point.
ongoing games don't really listen to their players either.
Yeah, yeah.
Like No Man's Sky is the only one that like actively listens to their players.
This
I
is
think it's kind of whack because these ongoing games have all been ongoing for like less than 3 years,
yeah,
with like maybe the exception of No Man's Sky. But like you got a 10-year game that's been mostly good for its entire 10 years and like still is chugging along and gaining players, and you don't want to include that in your category.
mm. And by that 10-year game, you mean Warframe, just to clarify to the audience.
Yes, that is true.
Yeah, I agree. Warframe should be on there, and I'm mad that it isn't. I also want to jump to another category that I find odd, and that's best esports game. And I know you don't care much about esports anymore, but I find it odd that Call of Duty Modern Warfare earned a spot, but Overwatch didn't, Dota 2 didn't. So the nominees for best esports game, just to get that out of the way real quick: Call of Duty Modern Warfare, CS:GO, Fortnite, League of Legends, and Valorant. And here's my thing: I think all of those deserve a spot, except maybe Fortnite. It's a good esport. It's an enjoyable esport to watch, but I don't think it's very skill based. I think Fortnite is very luck based, including their esports tournaments. It is a lot of like, where is the circle going? What items did you get on your drop?
Yeah.
That's what I don't like about Fortnite, but I understand it being there. I heavily disagree with Call of Duty Modern Warfare. And this is a disagreement that I have with a lot of our friends, because a lot of our friends play console. I don't think console esports deserve a spot as a nominee on this list when there are so many better PC esports that require more skill. And I'm going to say that again for anyone who didn't hear me in the back.
Oh,
PC
shit.
esports require way more skill than any console esport ever will, just because of the difference of playstyle, that being keyboard and mouse versus controller. Like, that's all I gotta say about it. Like, keyboard and mouse takes more skill to learn and has a higher skill ceiling than a controller ever will. And yeah,
Well, I think it's
Call of Duty.
one thing to like kind of back that up is yesterday I was playing COD with the boys, and they're all on console, and I was getting fucked by this guy who was quickscoping us, and I looked and he had a controller, and it's like, oh, it's not impressive anymore.
Yeah, it's not impressive
Like,
when someone destroys you in like Call of Duty, for example, because I play Call of Duty with you guys a little bit as well. Like, I was getting destroyed by kids, and then I'd watch the kill cam, and it was obviously just an aim assist kill.
You could see the aim assist.
And it's like, oh, that's not impressive anymore for me. I'm not saying that console games, and I'm not saying that Call of Duty Modern Warfare isn't a competitive game. It deserves to be titled an esport, but it doesn't deserve a nominee for best esports game when there's so many games that could have replaced
Another
it.
lava pit.
Nice. There's so many games that could have replaced it. Like I said, Dota 2 isn't on there. Excuse me? Overwatch isn't on there. Hello? Like, the Overwatch League is booming right now. I know a lot of its players are leaving, but the viewer base is very good, and it's getting a lot of support. I know a ton of people who love watching Overwatch League. I don't know a single person other than, like, Bailey from the Night Shift podcast who enjoys Call of Duty esports. The reason I bring up this topic and talk about it for so long is because...
I'm sure you have your reasons, but you cut the fuck out.
Well, I'll explain my reasons. I haven't even explained them yet. It's because the
Oh, I
Night
thought you
Shift
had.
podcast actually called me out for being too critical of Call of Duty esports. And I'm not backtracking. I still think Call of Duty esports are a whole league below PC esports like CSGO, Valorant, Dota 2, League of Legends, Overwatch, Rocket League, which I know a lot of Rocket League players are on controller, but I also know the
That's one where it doesn't matter as much though,
yeah.
because there's not like a robot helping you aim your gun.
Yeah, exactly what I was gonna say, Zach. So I just, I wanted to stand my ground a little bit and defend my opinion even further. All right, so here's a category that I also am somewhat confident about, and it is the only category where Doom Eternal got my vote. Doom Eternal shows up on a ton of categories, but again, it's not like it's a great game, but it's not phenomenal in my eyes. So I couldn't vote for it in any category except this, and that's Best Action, for a game focused primarily on combat. And Doom Eternal is exactly that. Doom Eternal is just like turn your brain off and destroy things, slaughter enemies, and I love it for that. But
I'm
the other
just learning.
nominees in Best Action were Hades, like I said, Half-Life Alyx, which is a great game. Half-Life Alyx is a beautiful game, and it won my vote in a couple categories. I don't know if I'll talk about them in this podcast. The other two nominees were Neo 2. I think I'm saying that right. I don't know. I've
What?
never even heard of it. It's Nioh
Okay.
2. Never heard of that game. And then Streets of Rage 4, which is a good game, but again, nothing. I don't think a single game released this year would ever surpass Doom Eternal as my best action game of the year. I just love
Fair.
turning my brain off and just slaughtering enemies,
Yeah, that's
absolutely destroying
reasonable.
them. Anyways, we should move on to best art direction because this is the one and only category I voted for The Last of Us. I've spent a lot of this podcast talking badly about The Last of Us, so might as well give props where props are due. And for context, what they define as art direction is outstanding creative and or technical achievement in artistic design and animation. And in my opinion, Last of Us does have the best animation of like any game released this year. It's really beautiful, even though, you know, some people would prefer that they didn't animate Abby in the first place. But it's really beautiful. So yeah, that is the one category where Last of Us 2 got my vote, and one of the few categories where I think Last of Us 2 deserves it. But Game of the Year,
Yeah,
not so much. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying. I don't know.
that's fair.
I think if Last of Us 2 wins Game of the Year, I'm not gonna be upset. It's one of the 4 games that I want to win, but I can't vote for it because all
Yeah.
I've heard is bad things. Like all I've heard is negativity. Ooh, let's talk about best game direction because this is a vote I have that
Dude, I'm just exploring.
this is a vote I made that our viewers are either going to agree with heavily or disagree with. So for best game direction, the nominees are Final Fantasy VII Remake, Ghost of Tsushima, Hades, Half-Life Alyx, and Last of Us Part 2. And
Okay.
your boy gives that to Half-Life Alyx. I think Half-Life Alyx is the
I low
best.
key haven't looked at Half-Life Alyx.
That's fair. If you don't know anything about it, I'll give a brief explanation, at least as to why I voted for it. I think it is the best thing they could have done that isn't Half-Life 3. Because they've said countless times now, Half-Life 3 is never happening. People need to accept that. But Half-Life Alyx kind of serves as a third Half-Life, a really
Like a
good third
part three
Half-Life
to the
game.
Half-Life story.
It doesn't continue the story of Half-Life 2, but like it's such a good Half-Life game. And it's just a joy. And you know,
It's just a joy to have in class.
the definition of best game direction as worded by the Game Awards is outstanding creative vision and innovation in game direction and design. And Half-Life Alyx does that beautifully. Almost every game I mentioned, almost every game nominated does that. But like Half-Life Alyx was
I hadn't voted for it yet, and I needed to somewhere.
it's kind of that mentality as well, as bad as that sounds. But like Half-Life Alyx deserves an award somewhere. This game is amazing in my opinion. And
I
it's
haven't
not
played it, and I want to.
it's not really nominated anywhere. It's only nominated a few places, and this is, in my opinion, the place it's the most deserving. Like, I don't think it deserves Game of the Year. Don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say that. I'm not trying to hype it up that much. But best game direction, that's fitting. That's fitting, in my opinion. All right, let's build this portal.
Yeah,
And
fair.
while we build the portal, I kind of want to talk about a category where I recognize zero of the games. And this is what I mean when I said, like, I I don't know. I guess I'm just not involved in the gaming community this year as I have been in past years because there's so many games I don't recognize and I haven't played.
You
Games
have
for
Flint?
Impact. Yeah, here's your Flint. Games for Impact are,
So,
if found, Kentucky Route Zero TV edition, which I don't know what that means, but whatever. It's the title of the game. Spiritfarer, Tell Me Why, and Through the Darkest of Times. Now, I don't know if you've heard of any of these games, Zach, but I've heard of
Nope.
none of them. And
oh,
I'm
just kidding. I've heard of Kentucky Route Zero because I got it for free on Twitch.
okay. Do you know what it's about at all?
But that is no, not at all.
That's fair. That's fair.
I have no clue what this game is about.
Yeah, I don't know.
I just know that I currently I could play it if I wanted to.
This category is for thought-provoking games with a pro-social meaning or message. So maybe that's why I don't know a lot about it because I don't play a lot of like super deep games that are supposed to make you think, I guess. But yeah, I when I opened this category to vote,
Yeah.
I just stared blankly at it and didn't vote because I have played none of these games. I've heard of none of these games. You want to talk about best indie game? It's one of the last topics I kind of care about. Like, I care about enough to talk about it on the podcast, at least.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
nominees. Again, 2 nominees I've never heard of before. And maybe that's just because I'm uncultured this year. I don't know. I haven't played enough games in 2020. Which kind of is fair. I've spent a lot of COVID just, like, laying in bed watching Netflix.
Chilling.
Sad.
Yeah.
Like, just sad. I haven't played as many games as you thought I would in quarantine.
Honestly, that's
But the nominees are Carry On, which I've never heard of. Fall
I haven't
Guys.
really tried anything new.
Fall Guys, which I didn't think was an indie game. I didn't know it was an indie game technically.
Yeah, that's kind of whack.
Hades, which I voted for, just to be completely transparent. I love Hades. I mean, if I'm considering voting for it for Game of the Year, obviously I'm gonna vote for it for Best Indie.
Considering voting for it for everything else it's in.
Yeah. Spelunky 2, which is a good game, but just not my type of game, which is why I didn't vote for it. I will 100% admit my bias there.
I hate that every entity can push you.
I know. And then there's
It's kind of
Spiritfarer.
dumb.
The final nominee is
Never heard of
Spiritfarer, which you've never heard of. I've never heard of. I don't even know what the
To
heck
be
it
fair,
is.
There's not a single song game I've heard of in this list right now.
So the reason I bring up indie games, the reason I want to talk about this is, while my vote is decided, I honestly feel like Fall Guys is gonna win. I have a
Probably.
sneaking suspicion, and that kind of bums me out because Fall Guys has fallen off heavily. Like, I know everyone was playing it, including myself, and then
Oh, you
no
played
one plays it. No one plays it anymore. Like, I don't know. It felt like a one-time thing.
like a passing fad.
Exactly. Meanwhile, Hades 2 is such a beautiful game that I voted for it and I hope it wins, but I'm worried it won't. I'm curious to learn more about, and I think after this podcast, I'll finally sit down and learn more about those 2 games I haven't heard of. I should have done research before the podcast, but life's just been busy, man. I got finals to study for now. I hate it. Oh, we gotta talk.
What are we talking about?
I thought I was done talking about the Game Awards, but no, we gotta keep talking. Best mobile game has me torn. To just name all the nominees: Among Us, Call of Duty Mobile, Genshin Impact, Legends of Runeterra, and Pokemon Cafe Mix, which, in my opinion, doesn't even deserve to be there, but whatever. I don't think it's that great. It's not that exceptional. But I voted for Genshin Impact.
Where the fuck is the enchanting table? Do you have the enchanting table?
It's behind you, bud.
Oh, I'm dumb as shit. Don't
You're
mind me.
fine. I voted for Genshin Impact because I didn't even know Genshin Impact was on mobile. Genshin Impact, like I was talking about earlier, is already one of my favorite games on PC. And then to find out it's on mobile, like, I'm gonna vote for it. That game is amazing. I didn't even think it could run on mobile because of how much of a game it is. But I was thinking about voting for Among Us because I do love Among Us. And Among Us appears on a couple categories in this Game Awards, and I don't think I voted for it once, which hurt. It hurt me because I love that game, but I couldn't find a place to vote for it in this Game Awards. Speaking of Genshin Impact, I also voted for it in Best Role-Playing Game. It beat out Final Fantasy VII, Persona 5, Wasteland 3, and Yakuza for me. All of those are great role-playing games. That kind of was tough, but Genshin is just...
Oh,
It's so good, and it's free. Like, I had to vote for it. So Genshin Impact has earned a lot of respect in my heart and has earned votes wherever I could vote for it, basically. Like, I am in love with that game. And yeah, I feel really excited to finally start it on stream because I
or
started
just
playing.
jump in.
Oh, I'm down to just jump in. I started playing Genshin Impact a little bit off stream, but I'm like, no, I'm gonna restart on stream. So I haven't even gotten deep into the game yet because I want to get deep into it on stream. So there's still a lot of Genshin Impact for me to play, and in the little bit I have played, I'm already in love with it. Going back to the Among Us topic though, and why I couldn't vote for Among Us in any of the categories, is well, even in categories where I think Among Us is hands down a great option, there's a better one. So the best multiplayer category is one that I thought about voting Among Us for, but then Valorant exists. And as much as I hate Valorant, I can't deny how good of a game it is. It's a great game. Valorant's an amazing game. I guess to explain in the simplest terms, a game like Valorant is just at its core better made and just overall more impressive than Among Us. As much as I love Among Us, so like I have to give Valorant props, even though there's a lot of things about Valorant I hate. Another shocker, by the way, is Animal Crossing New Horizons is a nominee for Best Multiplayer when we were just saying earlier how kind of
Multiplayer is literal shit.
it's so pointless. It's pointless multiplayer. So like, I don't get it. I don't know. I don't get it, I don't know. Fall Guys is a multiplayer candidate, which, yeah, it's fun to play with friends, but only one person can win. I don't know. I guess the point I'm trying to make is the multiplayer category is very confusing to me, and I don't see how Valorant doesn't win it, because Valorant is such a good
Valorant
game.
is a multiplayer game.
Yeah. Meanwhile, there are other games on there that aren't really multiplayer games. Oh, that's a good hit. Anyways, that's all the categories I really want to talk about. I'm gonna turn the sound down because this guy is loud, and let's just kill him. Let's just end his life. Huh? How does that sound, Zach? Oh, hey, bud. What's up, Brian? We're recording a podcast, Brian.
It placed the water, dude.
You're fine. What's your question, Brian? Oh, God. I would love half of a chicken quesadilla, Brian. Thanks, bud.
Yeah, no problem.
I've now hit 3 water bucket drops, Zach. I don't know how I've done this. I'm usually not this good at water clutching.
I just want to let you know that you can go fuck yourself because I've hit none and I'm not sure how.
That is not what I was expecting you to say, but you know what? I respect the aggression. I thought you were going to say something completely different.
Oh, it hurts. I am hurt. I am very much hurt.
I see that. Ouchies. I think we can get him if we just focus on swords. Ooh, or not.
Disagree.
I like how this podcast started more as a gaming video than a podcast, and now it's ending more as a gaming video than a podcast, but it's kind of hard to, you know, record like a podcast when we're fighting a giant dragon. Alright, let's try to finish this, man. Ouchies.
How? How did I die of fall damage?
Well, thank y'all for watching the podcast. You just
Fuck this
watched...
segment.
You just watched 2 people who suck at Minecraft beat Minecraft. So in all the chaos of us beating the game and Zach dying shortly after we beat the game, there was a lack of an outro recorded this episode. So I'm going to record that now. And it's almost a good thing we forgot to record an outro because, well, there are 2 things I want to bring up. The first and most important thing is apologies for the short length of this podcast. I really should have asked Zach to, you know, see if he wanted to talk about the Game Awards. Instead, I just said, hey, we're going to talk about the Game Awards. That's the topic for this episode. I didn't really check if that was okay with Zach, and therefore, as you saw, Zach didn't really have much to say. So if only half of the hosts of the podcast are talking this episode, it's no surprise that the episode was half the length as normal. Yeah, apologies. I was just really excited to talk about the Game Awards. I really wanted to talk about it as well because it's something that happened super recently. It's very timely. And, I think the Game Awards are cool. So I really wanted to talk about it. But because Zach doesn't really care much about the Game Awards, it led to me doing most of the talking and this episode being very short. Apologies. I will take the blame on that one, Chief. The second thing I want to talk about, and low-key apologize for, is this episode feeling a little bit rough as I'm editing it tonight. It definitely is rough around the edges, and that's because we were trying two new things. Those two new things being recording this podcast in a video game, which we've never done together, and dedicating one giant topic to an entire episode, which we've never done before. So, as we continue to make these episodes, hopefully we will improve. Don't get me wrong, I loved recording this podcast, and I think it's a good podcast. But inevitably, with anything you do in life, if it's your first time trying something, it's going to be your worst attempt, and you'll get better as time goes on. So while this episode might be rough, we promise in the future it's only going to get better. Thank you for watching all the way through if you did. Thank you for listening to me kind of rant here at the end of this episode, and we hope you all have a beautiful, beautiful rest of your day. We will see you all next week with our Thanksgiving episode. And until next time, peace.